My boyfriend cheated on me with his stepsister. So, buckle the fuck up, because this story is insane, and I need to vent before I lose my goddamn mind. I'm a 20-year-old girl, and I've been in a relationship with Liam, 22M, for almost 2 years now. I thought everything was perfect, or as perfect as you can expect a college relationship to be. He was sweet, funny, always knew how to make me feel like I was the only girl in the world. Or so I fucking thought. Liam seemed like the kind of guy who had everything together. He was charming, spontaneous, and could make even the most mundane moments feel like an adventure. He always knew how to make me laugh, and his presence was like a comforting weight in my life. For a while, I convinced myself that he was my person, the one I'd end up with. We met during my second year of college. At first, I didn't even notice him. He was just another guy in one of my classes, but then, over time, we became friends. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were going on dates. Honestly, I was just getting used to the idea of being in a serious relationship after some casual flings, and Liam made everything seem so easy. His family situation? Well, it wasn't perfect, but whose family is? Liam's parents had divorced when he was a kid, and his dad remarried a woman named Linda about 5 years ago. I'm not going to lie, I found it a little strange at first. Step-siblings can sometimes be a complicated dynamic, but Liam always told me it wasn't like that. He was very adamant about how he and Linda's daughter, Chloe, 19F, were not really siblings, at least not in any meaningful way. I found it odd that he had to make such a distinction, but I let it slide. I trusted him. After all, trust is the foundation of any relationship, right? If you can't trust your partner, what's even the point of being together? For most of our relationship, Chloe wasn't an issue. She'd show up at family dinners every now and then, and occasionally, she'd text Liam with questions about homework or college stuff. It was normal step-sibling behavior, nothing out of the ordinary. But if I'm being honest, something about Chloe always rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't even anything overt, it was just this feeling I had whenever she was around. She'd laugh a little too loudly at Liam's jokes, cling to his arm a little too often, and there was something in the way she looked at him sometimes that unsettled me. It was as if she wanted everyone to know they were close, almost as if she was trying to establish some kind of connection. I brushed it off as me overthinking things, as we often do in relationships. After all, Liam was crazy about me, and I trusted him, so what did it matter, right? But over time, I started noticing more subtle things that made me uneasy. The way she'd find reasons to text him in the middle of the night, or how they'd talk in this strange, intimate way during family gatherings. I still didn't want to believe it, though. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid. That was, until last month, when everything came crashing down. Signs of trouble. The first red flags. It started slowly at first, like a small crack in a perfect facade. Liam started acting off. He became more distant, more secretive. At first, it wasn't anything alarming. He was still affectionate, still the same guy I had fallen for, but there were moments when I could sense a shift. His eyes would glaze over when I tried to talk to him about something important, or he'd start getting defensive whenever I asked about his day. It felt like he was hiding something, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Then, there was his phone. It was always glued to his hand. It wasn't unusual for people to check their phones every now and then, but Liam? He would disappear into his phone for hours on end. Whenever I asked who he was texting, he'd get this smug, almost condescending smile, and say, "Oh, it's just the guys." I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I didn't want to seem controlling or paranoid, so I brushed it off. The weirdness ramped up when Liam started staying late for study sessions. He'd come home late, sometimes not until midnight, claiming he was working on a project for school. The problem? Liam had graduated the semester before. He wasn't even in school anymore. So what the hell was he studying for? Every time I asked, he'd change the subject or he'd get defensive. It didn't add up. My anxiety started to get the best of me. I felt like I was slowly losing him, and that feeling gnawed at me. I started becoming hyper-aware of every little detail. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was seriously wrong, and I wasn't going to sit around and pretend everything was fine. The snoop, a descent into paranoia. One evening, when Liam was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would do. I snooped. I'm not proud of it, but the paranoia had consumed me. I felt like I had no other choice. Liam had left his phone on the coffee table, and against every moral fiber of my being, I picked it up. My heart was racing as I scrolled through his messages. He had always been careful to hide things, but I had my suspicions that he might have left something behind. When I opened the messaging app, my stomach twisted into knots. Most of the chats had been archived, but then I saw it, Chloe's name. I swear to God, my heart stopped. The words on the screen were like a punch to the gut. There were messages between Liam and Chloe that I never should have seen, but there they were, clear as day. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Don't forget to delete this. We can't let her find out. I wish we didn't have to sneak around like this. I felt like I was going to throw up. My hands were trembling as I scrolled through more messages. The timestamps confirmed it. This wasn't a one-time thing. This had been going on for months. While I had been living my life, planning our future, Liam had been secretly sleeping with Chloe. It was as if my entire world had shattered in that one moment. The confrontation. Truths unraveled. When Liam came back into the living room, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether I wanted to scream, cry, or throw the phone at his head. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, betrayal, and a deep sense of humiliation. But somehow I managed to keep my cool. I didn't let him see how much this was tearing me apart. I shoved his phone in his face and asked, "What the FUCK is this?" His face went pale. I swear, I saw the color drain from his face as he stammered, "I can explain." Explain? Explain what, Liam? That you've been fucking Chloe behind my back? That all those study sessions were actually you two screwing like rabbits? Liam tried to deny it at first. He sputtered, fumbled over his words, but I wasn't having any of it. I threw the phone at him, showing him each damning message, one by one. Each time he tried to defend himself, I slammed another message in his face. Eventually, he had no choice but to admit it. "It just happened," he said. "It was a mistake." A mistake? A mistake? At that point, I was full-on sobbing, my face flushed with rage and hurt. I couldn't understand how he could betray me like this. How could he do this to me? I loved him. I trusted him. And now, everything felt like a lie. The aftermath, the first days of heartbreak. In the days that followed the confrontation, I felt like I was in some sort of haze. My emotions were in a constant state of flux. Sometimes I felt completely numb, and other times, the anger and hurt surged within me, threatening to drown me. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I blocked Liam on everything: phone, social media, email, and made sure there was no way for him to contact me. I didn't want to hear his apologies. I didn't want to listen to any more of his pathetic excuses. The love of my life, who I had trusted with my heart, my body, my future, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I needed space, I needed time, but most of all, I needed to not be reminded of him every second of every day. Emily, my best friend, was my lifeline during this period. She was furious on my behalf, even more so than I was at times. She hated Liam with a passion, and once she found out what had happened, she immediately started plotting ways to make him pay. Emily was one of those friends who didn't just offer sympathy, she offered solutions, and in her mind, revenge was the only option. "You know what you should do?" she asked me one night, her eyes gleaming with righteous fury. "You need to make him regret it. Make him wish he'd never looked at Chloe like that." I wasn't sure what I wanted at that point. Part of me wanted to hurt him the way he'd hurt me. I wanted to make him feel the anguish I felt in my gut. But another part of me, the rational, calm part, knew that revenge wasn't going to fix anything. It wouldn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, or the humiliation. It wouldn't heal the gaping hole in my chest. But before I could even begin to process my emotions, something unexpected happened. Chloe reached out to me. Chloe's message, the unexpected twist. It came in the form of an Instagram message. I had blocked both Liam and Chloe on all other platforms, so when I saw the notification, my heart skipped a beat. I didn't even want to open it at first. I was so done with both of them, so disgusted by what had happened that the idea of speaking to either of them made my blood boil. But curiosity won out in the end. The message read, "Hey, can we talk?" My stomach flipped. What the hell did Chloe have to say? Did she think she could just waltz back into my life after everything that had happened? I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The urge to ignore her was overwhelming, but something inside me told me I needed answers. I needed to understand. I took a deep breath, and with shaking hands, I typed back, "What do you want?" The response came quickly. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Can we meet up and talk?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her to fuck off and never contact me again. But, for some reason, I agreed. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I just needed to hear her say the words to explain herself so I could move on. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. The conversation, Chloe's apology. When I saw Chloe walk into the coffee shop, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked so small, so fragile. The confident, slightly bratty persona I'd seen around Liam was gone. In its place was a girl who looked like she had been through hell herself. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours, and her posture was slouched, as if the weight of the world was bearing down on her. She hesitated at the door for a second, as if trying to summon the courage to approach me. When she finally did, I didn't know whether to stand up or stay seated. It was the strangest feeling. Part of me wanted to lash out at her, to scream at her for what she'd done, but another part of me felt sorry for her. I hated that I felt that way, but I couldn't deny it. Chloe sat across from me, wringing her hands in her lap. She looked down at the table for a moment before speaking, her voice trembling slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said quietly. "I never wanted any of this. It just happened." I stared at her, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to rip into her, to call her out for being just as guilty as Liam, but another part of me wondered if she was telling the truth. "How could you let it happen, Chloe?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. "You knew it was wrong. You knew how much I cared about Liam. How could you just let it go this far?" Chloe's face twisted with guilt. She looked like she was about to cry, but she held it back, taking a shaky breath before speaking again. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was confused. And Liam, he's so convincing. He made me believe that it wasn't a big deal because we're not really siblings. He made me feel like I was the one who mattered. I blinked, taken aback by her words. Was that really how she felt? Did she think she was just some victim in this mess too? I tried to stop, she continued, her voice cracking. I tried to end it, but he wouldn't let me. Every time I tried to break up with him, he'd pull me back in, telling me that it wasn't a big deal, that we were just having fun. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I sat back in my chair, taking all of this in. It wasn't an excuse. She had made choices, just like Liam had. But the more she spoke, the more I started to understand. Chloe wasn't the mastermind behind this affair. She was another victim of Liam's manipulation. And then, as if the whole situation couldn't get any worse, Chloe dropped another bombshell. The twist, betrayal within betrayal. "I know this isn't going to make it any better," Chloe said, her voice thick with emotion. "But Liam, he wasn't just cheating on you with me." I froze. What the hell was she talking about? "He cheated on me too," she whispered. "With my best friend." My mind went blank. I couldn't process what she had just said. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "Wait," I stammered. "What? You mean, he was cheating on both of us? With your best friend?" Chloe nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Yeah. I found out a few weeks ago. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw the messages. He was telling her the same things he was telling me. And I confronted him about it. That's when he told me it was over between us. He said he wanted to be with her, that he was done with me." I couldn't even breathe. Liam hadn't just been cheating on me with Chloe, he'd been two-timing her as well. This whole time, while I thought I was the one who was being betrayed, he was playing both of us like fools. The fallout, moving on. After our meeting, I left the coffee shop feeling numb. Chloe's confession didn't change the fact that I had been lied to, deceived, and betrayed. It didn't undo the hurt that Liam had caused, nor did it make me feel any better about the whole situation. But it did give me some closure. I knew now that Liam wasn't the person I thought he was. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a manipulator. He had used both of us, convincing Chloe that they had something real, while doing the same to me. And the worst part? He had never once considered the damage he was doing to the two people who cared about him most. I spent the next few weeks focusing on myself. I didn't think about revenge. I didn't think about getting back at him. I just focused on healing, on rebuilding my life, and on rediscovering who I was outside of the relationship I thought I had with Liam. In the end, I realized something important. I was better off without him. The person I had loved, trusted, wasn't real. And now that I knew that, I could finally begin to let go.